The massive alien vessel appeared suddenly at the edge of Earth's solar system, causing panic among military leaders worldwide. Deep space sensors had detected no approach, no warp signature. The ship simply materialized like a phantom made solid. Commander Park Jin-ho of the Earth Defense Fleet stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced starship, the Harmony, staring at the tactical display with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "Size estimate confirmed, sir," reported Lieutenant Kim Sun-mai, her fingers dancing across the sensor console. "It's approximately 12 kilometers in length. Nothing in our database matches its configuration." Park nodded, his expression remaining carefully neutral despite the churning in his stomach. 12 kilometers. The alien vessel was nearly 50 times larger than the Harmony. If this was first contact, humanity was severely outmatched. "All stations, maintain alert status but no aggressive posturing," Park ordered. "Communications, continue broadcast of the standard greeting package on all frequencies." The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, though Park noticed the tension in their movements. This was what they had trained for, but no simulation could prepare them for the reality of meeting an alien civilization for the first time. "Sir, we're receiving a response," Lieutenant Kim announced suddenly, her eyes widening. It's in perfect standard English." Before Park could respond, the main view screen flickered and displayed the interior of what appeared to be the alien vessel's command center. Park stiffened as he found himself looking at the first confirmed extraterrestrial intelligence humanity had ever encountered. The alien commander was tall and powerfully built, with smooth bluish skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights of their bridge. Most striking were its eyes, large, multifaceted organs that reflected light like polished gems. When it spoke, its mouth moved in perfect sync with the words, "I am Supreme Commander Toll of the Knox Dominion. Your species is unknown to us. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Park stepped forward, drawing on all his diplomatic training. "I am Commander Park Jin-ho of the Earth Defense Fleet vessel Harmony. We represent humanity and the unified government of Earth. We welcome you in peace and friendship." The alien's face remained expressionless, those faceted eyes studying Park with unsettling intensity. Peace, friendship, these concepts hold little value in the greater universe. Commander Park. The Knox evaluates species based on usefulness or threat level. Which category does humanity fall into? The directness of the question caught Park off guard. He exchanged a quick glance with his first officer before responding. "Perhaps there's a third category you haven't considered. Partners. Different species can benefit from exchange and cooperation." A sound emerged from Tool that might have been laughter, though it held no warmth. A naive perspective, but not unexpected from a species new to interstellar reality. The Knox have encountered 37 spacefaring civilizations. 26 now serve the Dominion. 11 no longer exist. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Park maintained his composure with effort. "Then we have much to learn from each other," Park replied carefully. "Would you accept an invitation to meet in person, to better assess humanity's category?" Toll seemed to consider this for a moment. "Acceptable. I will board your vessel with a small security contingent. Prepare your crew." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "Sir," First Officer Han whispered urgently, "did you just invite the most dangerous aliens we've ever encountered onto our ship?" Park nodded grimly. "Better to meet them on terms we can control than wait for them to decide our fate without input." Within 2 hours, the Harmony's docking bay had been prepared to receive the alien delegation. Park stood at attention with a small honor guard, watching as the sleek, predatory shape of the Knox shuttle settled onto the deck with barely a sound. The shuttle's hatch opened with a soft hiss, releasing a brief cloud of unfamiliar atmosphere. Supreme Commander Tool emerged first, even more imposing in person than over the view screen. Standing nearly 2.5 meters tall, the alien commander dominated the space. 4 similarly impressive Knox warriors followed, carrying weapons unlike anything Park had seen before. "Commander Park, Tool acknowledged with a slight inclination of his head. Your vessel is smaller than expected, but adequately designed. Thank you for accepting our invitation, Park replied, ignoring the backhanded compliment. We've prepared a tour of our ship and a meeting room for discussions. As they moved through the corridors of the Harmony, Park noticed how the Knox seemed to analyze everything they passed. The technology, the crew members, even the structural design of the ship itself. It felt less like a diplomatic visit and more like an assessment. In the conference room, refreshments had been laid out, both Earth foods and universal nutrient compounds that the science team hoped would be compatible with Knox biology. Tool ignored them completely, taking a seat and fixing those unsettling eyes on Park. Tell me, Commander, how does your species reproduce? The question came without preamble. Park blinked in surprise. That's an unusual first question for diplomatic contact. It is the most important question, Tull replied. Species are defined by how they create more of themselves. The Knox divide. One becomes two. Efficient. Superior. Your method will tell me much about humanity's place in the universal hierarchy. Park hesitated, unsure how to proceed. This was far from the standard first contact protocol he had trained for. Humans reproduce sexually. Two individuals contribute genetic material to create offspring. Tull's head tilted slightly. Wasteful. Inefficient. Yet intriguing. Show me. That's not possible, Park stammered, suddenly understanding the alien's request. Human reproduction is private and not something we could demonstrate. Privacy. Another inefficient concept, Tull said dismissively. Very well. Your science officer can provide educational materials. The Knox require understanding of all species we encounter. Park nodded to his science officer, Dr. Lee, who looked distinctly uncomfortable but began accessing the ship's database for basic biological information. As the meeting continued, Park realized something unsettling. The Knox weren't just dangerous because of their technology or military power. They were dangerous because they saw the universe through a completely different lens, one where other beings existed only to be categorized, utilized, or eliminated. Yet beneath Tull's cold exterior, Park sensed something else. Curiosity, and perhaps in that curiosity lay humanity's best hope for survival. The days following first contact unfolded in a careful dance of diplomacy and tension. Commander Park had arranged for a dedicated section of the Harmony to serve as both living quarters and meeting space for the Knox delegation. Supreme Commander Tool had chosen to remain aboard with two of his officers, while their massive vessel orbited at a distance that military advisors considered just far enough to give Earth forces reaction time, but close enough to remind everyone of its presence. Dr. Lee stood nervously beside a holographic display in the ship's main laboratory, aware that his audience consisted of the most dangerous known entity in the galaxy. Tull's multifaceted eyes reflected the blue light of the display as images of human cellular structures rotated in the air between them. As you can see, Dr. Lee explained, trying to keep his voice steady, human reproduction combines genetic material from two individuals, typically designated male and female, to create a new, unique organism. Tool moved closer to the display, his towering frame casting shadows across the laboratory floor. Wasteful. One Knox can become two, then four, then 8. Simple division. No need for cooperation. The way Tull pronounced the word cooperation made it sound like a disease. Park, observing from near the doorway, noticed how the alien's head ridges flattened slightly, a gesture he was beginning to recognize as disapproval. Different, yes, Dr. Lee acknowledged, but our method creates tremendous genetic diversity. Each new human contains unique combinations of traits from both parents. Tool made a dismissive gesture. Diversity brings chaos. Inefficiency. With respect, Park interjected, stepping forward. Diversity has been humanity's greatest strength. It's why we've survived catastrophes that might have wiped out a more uniform species. The lab fell silent as Tool considered this, One of the other Knox officers, Mech, moved closer to the display and pointed at a sequence showing embryonic development. This mixing. It creates weaknesses as well as strengths, Mech asked. Dr. Lee nodded. Sometimes, but overall the benefits outweigh the disadvantages. Natural selection ensures that beneficial traits tend to persist, while harmful ones diminish over generations. Tull's attention shifted to a different display, showing the social structures of human families. You form permanent bonds with your reproductive partners. Many do, though not all, Park explained. Human social structures are as diverse as our genetics. Unnecessary complexity, Tull stated, though Park noticed a subtle change in his tone. Less dismissive, more curious. Show me more. Over the next few hours, the cultural exchange shifted from pure biology to broader aspects of human society. Dr. Lee displayed images of human art, architecture, and social gatherings. Music played briefly, a classical piece that caused the Knox officers to tilt their heads in apparent confusion. These activities, Tull questioned, they serve reproduction purposes. Park couldn't help but smile slightly. No, most don't directly relate to reproduction. They're expressions of creativity, community, joy. Joy. Tull repeated the word as if testing an unfamiliar food. A luxury concept. The Knox value efficiency, conquest, expansion. Yet you create technology, Park observed. Your ships are beautiful in their design. There's artistry there, beyond pure function. For the first time, Tull seemed momentarily at a loss for words. The alien commander studied Park with those unnerving eyes. Perhaps there are parallels we had not considered, Tull finally admitted. As the exchange continued, Lieutenant Kim arrived with refreshments and new data modules. She moved efficiently around the room, setting down trays and updating displays. Park noticed how Tull's gaze followed her movements. This female, Tull said abruptly, she carries young within her. Kim froze, her hand instinctively moving to her abdomen. Park felt a chill run down his spine. The lieutenant was only 8 weeks pregnant, barely showing. The fact that Tull could detect this was unsettling. Yes, Kim answered, maintaining remarkable composure. I am expecting a child. Tull approached her, towering over the lieutenant. Everyone in the room tensed, security officers discreetly shifting their positions. But Tull merely observed, those faceted eyes studying her with intense interest. You carry a new being that is part you, part another. And you continue your duties while doing this. Kim nodded. Yes, human females typically remain active during pregnancy. Efficiency and creation. Simultaneously, Tull noted, using words that seemed to carry special significance to the Knox. Interesting. Later, as the cultural exchange moved to the ship's hydroponics bay, where earth plants grew in carefully maintained environments, Park noticed a shift in the Knox delegation's behavior. They asked more questions, interrupted less, and seemed genuinely interested in understanding rather than simply evaluating. Your species invests significant resources in preserving other life forms, Tull observed, watching as a botanist tended to rows of medicinal plants. We've learned that biodiversity benefits everyone, the botanist explained. Each species plays a role in a larger system. When we work with nature rather than against it, we all thrive. Working with rather than conquering, Tull repeated slowly. A novel approach. That evening, as Park reviewed the day's records in his quarters, his communication panel chimed. A request from Supreme Commander Tull for a private meeting. Park hesitated only briefly before accepting. Tull arrived alone, a breach of Knox protocol that didn't escape Park's notice. Commander, Tull began without preamble. I wish to observe more of your reproductive education materials. Park nodded, accessing his terminal. Of course. What specifically interests you? The concept of family units, the raising of offspring, the emotional connections. Park pulled up appropriate educational content, watching as Tool absorbed the information with intense concentration. For a moment, in the blue light of the display, the alien commander seemed less like a conqueror and more like a scholar confronting a paradigm shift. Your species' approach contradicts all Knox understanding of universal principles, Tool finally said. Where we see strength in uniformity, you find it in difference. Where we conquer, you connect. Different paths to survival, Park suggested. Perhaps, Tull replied, those alien eyes reflecting the images of human families. Or perhaps we have been asking the wrong questions about what truly ensures a species' dominance in the universe. For the first time since the massive Knox vessel had appeared in Earth's skies, Park felt a small flicker of hope. The medical bay of the Harmony hummed with quiet activity as Dr. Lee prepared the educational materials Supreme Commander Tool had requested. Park stood nearby, watching the tall alien with careful attention. Over the past week, Tool had shown increasing interest in human reproduction and family structures, a fascination that Park hoped might help humanity's chances of survival. The recording is ready, Dr. Lee announced, his fingers hovering over the control panel. This is standard medical footage used in education. It shows the complete process of human birth. Tool moved closer to the display, his blue-scaled head tilting slightly. Proceed. The screen illuminated with footage of a hospital delivery room. The camera focused respectfully on the medical team's actions while maintaining the privacy of the mother. Dr. Lee provided clinical commentary as the footage progressed, explaining each stage of the birthing process. When the newborn finally emerged and filled the room with its first cries, Park noticed something extraordinary. Tool's normally rigid posture had changed. The alien commander had leaned forward, those multifaceted eyes fixed on the screen with an intensity Park hadn't seen before. This creation, Tull said, voice softer than usual. It comes from pain. Yes, there is pain, Dr. Lee acknowledged, but most human mothers report the outcome far outweighs the temporary discomfort. And this? Tool asked as the footage showed the newborn being placed on the mother's chest, tiny hands reflexively grasping. Skin-to-skin contact, explained Dr. Lee. It helps regulate the baby's temperature and breathing, and strengthens the bond between parent and child. Bond, Tull repeated. The alien went silent, watching as the footage showed the father joining the mother, both gazing at their new child with expressions of wonder and love. Park noticed something he never expected to see. A slight tremor in Tull's hand as the alien commander reached toward the screen, not quite touching it. The Knox have no equivalent to this experience, Tull said finally. When we divide, the new being contains all knowledge of the original. There is no discovery, no wonder. For the first time, Park heard something like regret in the alien's voice. Later that day, Park was summoned to a secure meeting room. He found Tull standing alone by the viewport, staring out at the stars. You wished to see me, Supreme Commander? Park asked. Tull didn't turn immediately. The Knox have existed for 27,000 of your Earth years. In that time, we have conquered hundreds of worlds and dozens of species. Park remained silent, sensing that interrupting would be unwise. We believed our method of reproduction was superior, clean, efficient, predictable. One becomes two, identical in every way. But today I have realized something disturbing. Tull finally turned, those alien eyes seeming somehow more alive than before. We have not evolved in 10,000 years. Park carefully considered his response. Evolution requires variation. Without genetic mixing, adaptation slows. Yes, Tull agreed, but it is more than biology. It is perspective. The alien commander gestured to the stars visible through the viewport. The Knox see the universe in one way because we are all, essentially, one being divided countless times. We cannot imagine alternatives because we all think alike. Park felt a chill run down his spine as he began to understand the revelation Tull was experiencing. Your species creates new beings who see the world differently from their creators, Tull continued. Each human child brings new ideas, new possibilities. This is why your art changes, why your science advances in unexpected directions. Diversity of thought has always been our strength, Park agreed. And our greatest weakness, Tull said, a new intensity in his voice. The Knox expand through conquest because we cannot imagine alternatives. We have been conquering ourselves, Commander Park. The same thoughts, the same solutions, repeated across galaxies. Park watched as Tool paced the room, the alien's movements betraying an agitation he'd never displayed before. What will happen when the Knox encounter a truly different threat? Tool asked. One that requires a solution we cannot conceive. We will fall, as surely as if we faced ourselves in battle. There are always alternatives to conquest, Park suggested carefully. Tull stopped pacing and fixed those faceted eyes on Park. Show me. The next day, Lieutenant Kim guided Tull through the ship's nursery, a small facility established for the handful of crew members with young children. The Knox commander towered over the colorful space, looking oddly out of place among the toys and small furniture. A young boy of about 4 approached fearlessly, looking up at the alien visitor with open curiosity. "Are you a space monster?" the boy asked bluntly. The 2 security officers tensed, but Park gestured for them to stand down. To everyone's surprise, Tull crouched down to the child's level. "I am Knox, not monster, different from you." The boy considered this serious answer. "I'm Min. I can count to 100. Can you?" The Knox can calculate the gravitational constants of 17 galaxies simultaneously, Tull replied. Min's eyes widened. "That's more than 100. Want to see my drawing?" Without waiting for an answer, Min took Tull's massive hand and pulled the alien commander toward a small table covered with children's artwork. Park watched in amazement as the most dangerous being known to humanity allowed itself to be led by a child. That evening, Tull requested a private transmission to the Knox vessel. Park granted it but monitored the communication from the bridge as a security precaution. The humans require further study, Tull told his second-in-command. Their reproductive method creates diversity that may benefit the Dominion. They are primitives, the other Knox responded dismissively. Their value as resources is limited. That assessment is incomplete, Tull replied, using a word that Park's translator indicated was rarely spoken among the Knox. "I will remain to gather more data." After ending the transmission, Tull turned to find Park standing in the doorway. "Your officers disagree with your interest in humanity," Park observed. Tull's head ridges flattened slightly. The Knox function as one mind. "Disagreement is unknown to us. Until now." "What changed?" Park asked quietly. Tull's multifaceted eyes seemed to look inward for a moment. "I witnessed creation, Commander. Not division, not conquest, but something truly new entering the universe. It has awakened questions I did not know could exist." In that moment, Park understood that the most dangerous weapon humanity possessed against the Knox was not technology or military might, but the simple miracle of new life and the endless diversity it created. The alarm blared through the Harmony's corridors, its urgent wail pulling Commander Park from a rare moment of sleep. He was on his feet and halfway into his uniform before the ship's AI finished announcing the nature of the emergency. Security breach in Sector 7. Unknown energy signatures detected. All personnel implement lockdown procedures. Park rushed to the bridge, passing crew members hurrying to their stations. The ship felt different, tense in a way it hadn't been even during first contact with the Knox. "Report," Park demanded as he entered the bridge. Lieutenant Kim looked up from her console, face pale. "Sir, a Knox shuttle docked without authorization 5 minutes ago. 6 Knox soldiers have boarded and are moving toward the diplomatic quarters." "Where is Supreme Commander Tool?" Park asked, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. "Still in the observation lounge with Dr. Lee. They don't appear to be aware of the situation." Park made a quick decision. "Lock down all sections between the intruders and Tool. I'll head to the observation lounge personally. Alert security teams, but tell them to hold position. We don't want to start a firefight if we can avoid it." As Park hurried through the ship's corridors, the emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow. He reached the observation lounge just as the ship shuddered violently. Something had hit them. The doors slid open to reveal Tool and Dr. Lee examining a holographic display of human genetic sequencing. Both looked up as Park entered. "Commander, what?" Dr. Lee began, but Park cut him off. "We have a situation. Unauthorized Knox boarding party. They appear to be heading this way." Toll's reaction surprised Park. The alien commander's head ridges flared fully, a gesture Park had never seen before. "Rek," Toll said, the name sounding like a curse. "My second in command. He disapproves of my interest in your species." Another violent shudder ran through the ship. The lights flickered. "The Knox vessel is firing on us," Park said, checking his tactical display. "Minimal power, likely trying to disable rather than destroy." "You must get me to your communication center," Toll said urgently. "I can order them to stop." Park hesitated only briefly before nodding. "This way. We'll use the maintenance tunnels." As they moved through the narrow service corridors, Park received continuous updates through his earpiece. The intruding Knox had reached the diplomatic quarters and found them empty. Now they were spreading out, searching systematically. "Why would your second in command do this?" Park asked as they crawled through a particularly tight section of tunnel. "The Knox operate with one mind, one purpose," Tool explained, his massive frame barely fitting through the human-sized passage. "My changing perspective threatens that unity. Rek believes I have been contaminated by human ideas." "Have you?" Dr. Lee asked quietly from behind them. Tool paused, those faceted eyes reflecting the dim emergency lighting. "Yes, and it terrifies him." They emerged near the secondary communications hub, a smaller version of the main system on the bridge. Park quickly entered his override codes to access the system. "You can broadcast from here," he told Tool, stepping aside. Tool moved toward the console, but stopped abruptly. His head tilted in that peculiar way Park had come to recognize as the alien listening to something humans couldn't hear. "Too late," Toll said. "They've detected us." The door to the communications hub slid open, revealing the Knox soldier slightly smaller than Toll, but no less intimidating. The newcomer carried what appeared to be a weapon, though its design was unlike anything Park had seen before. "Supreme Commander," the Knox said, voice cold. "Sub-Commander Rek requests your immediate return to the vessel." "Where is Rek?" Toll demanded. Approaching. He wished to secure the human leader first. Park felt a chill. The bridge. Rek was heading for the bridge. Before anyone could react further, the ship rocked with another impact, this one much stronger. The lights went out completely for several seconds before the emergency systems engaged. In the dim red glow, the Knox soldier raised its weapon. "The humans have corrupted you with their chaotic biology. You will be purified upon return." "Lower your weapon, Maz," Toll ordered, voice carrying an authority that seemed to physically press against the air. The soldier hesitated, weapon wavering slightly. "The consensus has been reached." "You are compromised." "The consensus is wrong," Toll said. Something in the alien commander's voice had changed. There was emotion there, something Park would have called passion in a human. The moment stretched, taut with tension. Then Park saw an opportunity. A maintenance panel behind the Knox soldier had come loose in the attack. Park caught Dr. Lee's eye and gave a subtle nod toward it. Dr. Lee understood immediately. He lunged forward, slamming the panel with all his strength. It crashed into the Knox soldier, not harming it but disrupting its balance just enough for Tool to move. What happened next occurred so quickly Park could barely follow it. Tool and the soldier engaged in what seemed like combat, but involved no physical contact. Waves of energy pulsed between them, distorting the air. When it ended, the soldier lay unconscious on the floor. Toll stood over his fallen comrade, breathing heavily. "We must reach the bridge," Tool said. "Rek will not hesitate to kill your people." They moved quickly through the ship, encountering scattered crew members taking shelter from the intruders. Park organized them into a makeshift security detail as they progressed. When they reached the bridge, the scene that greeted them froze Park's blood. Sub-Commander Rek stood at the center of the bridge, holding Lieutenant Kim by the throat. The other bridge officers were held at weapon point by Knox soldiers. "Release her," Park demanded, stepping forward. Rek's head turned, those alien eyes settling first on Park, then widening at the sight of Tool. "The contaminated returns," Rek said, "with his human pets." "This ends now," Rek, Tool said, moving to stand beside Park. "Release the human female. She carries new life," Rek said, his grip on Kim's throat tightening. "The very corruption that has infected you. This chaos cannot be permitted to spread." Park saw Kim struggling to breathe, her hands protectively covering her stomach. "Rek," Toll said, voice suddenly quieter. "You fear what you do not understand, as I did. But I have learned something vital to our survival." Toll took another step forward. "The Knox way leads to stagnation, to extinction. These humans have shown me another path." "Heresy," Rek snarled. "Truth," Toll countered. "Let me show you." What followed was unlike anything Park had ever witnessed. Tool extended a hand toward Rek, and some form of connection formed between them, a shimmering link that pulsed with information. Rek's body went rigid, his eyes widening as if seeing something overwhelming. Lieutenant Kim fell from his grip, gasping for air. Park rushed forward to help her to safety. For long moments, Tool and Rek remained connected by that strange energy. When it finally broke, both Knox seemed changed. Rek looked around the bridge as if seeing it for the first time. His gaze settled on Lieutenant Kim, who was still catching her breath. "Two becoming more than the sum," Rek said, voice tinged with wonder. "Not division. Creation." Tool nodded. "Now you understand why the humans must be studied, not conquered." The tension on the bridge slowly dissipated as the Knox soldiers lowered their weapons. The crisis had passed, but Park knew that something fundamental had changed, not just for humanity's relationship with the Knox, but for the Knox themselves. 3 months after the crisis aboard the Harmony, Commander Park stood in Earth's newly constructed interspecies embassy, watching as humans and Knox worked side by side. The massive hall buzzed with activity. Scientists comparing notes, diplomats drafting agreements, and engineers exchanging technological insights. Park spotted Dr. Lee demonstrating a genetic sequencing technique to a group of Knox scientists. Their normally rigid postures had softened over time, and they leaned forward with evident interest as Dr. Lee explained how random genetic combinations created unexpected benefits. "A remarkable sight," came a familiar voice from behind him. Park turned to find Supreme Commander Tool approaching. The alien leader had changed since their first meeting. Though still physically imposing, Tool moved with a new fluidity, his gestures more expressive. "I never imagined we'd reach this point," Park admitted. "When your ship first appeared in our system, I thought I might be overseeing humanity's last days. And I never imagined the Knox would have anything to learn from another species," Toll replied. "We were both wrong in the best possible way." They walked together through the embassy, passing displays showing the early results of their cooperation. One screen showed a Knox child, the firstborn through genetic combination rather than division. The breakthrough had come after Knox scientists adapted human reproductive principles to their own biology. "How is the child adapting?" Park asked, pausing to study the image. "Differently," Tull said, and Park could hear something like pride in the alien's voice. "She asks questions no Knox has ever considered. She sees patterns we miss. She is new in a way the Knox have never experienced." They continued walking until they reached a large window overlooking the embassy gardens. There, Lieutenant Kim sat on a bench, her now visible pregnancy in its 7th month. She was showing a group of Knox something on a tablet computer. "She has become quite popular among our scientists," Tool observed. Park nodded. Kim has a gift for explaining complex human concepts in ways the Knox can understand. What are they discussing today? Family traditions, Tull replied. The concept of passing knowledge through generations rather than through direct division is fascinating to us. The idea that information can be transformed rather than merely transferred, it changes everything. A small smile crossed Park's face. It's strange to think that something as basic as how we reproduce could be the key to peace between our species. Not strange at all, Tull countered. It is the most fundamental difference between us, and therefore the most important to understand. They were interrupted by the arrival of Sub-Commander Rek, who had once threatened everything they had built. Now he served as lead liaison between the Knox fleet and Earth. The Council of Elders has reached a decision, Rek announced, addressing both Park and Tool. They have approved the formation of the first voluntary Knox human research outpost in the neutral zone. Voluntary, Park repeated, recognizing the significance of the word. The Knox had never before established any presence that wasn't based on conquest. Yes, Rek confirmed. The Elders believe there is more to gain from cooperation than conquest in this case. It is unprecedented. Tull's head ridges rose slightly, a gesture Park now recognized as satisfaction. And the reproductive studies. Approved for expansion, Rek said. 12 Knox have volunteered for the next phase of genetic combination trials. After Rek departed, Park and Tull continued their walk through the embassy. They passed a classroom where human children and the few Knox youngsters were engaged in what appeared to be an art project. The Knox children were creating images unlike anything their species had produced before, full of color and unexpected patterns. They're beautiful, Park commented. They are unpredictable, Tull responded. That is something the Knox have never valued until now. We always sought perfect replication, perfect control. And now, Tull was quiet for a moment. Now we understand that perfect replication leads to vulnerability. Your human scientist Darwin recognized it centuries ago. Adaptation requires variation. They reached a quiet alcove where a small celebration was being prepared. A banner hung across the entrance, celebrating new life, human and Knox united. The party was Kim's idea, Park explained, to honor both Lieutenant Wong's new baby and the first Knox combination child. She thought it would symbolize our new beginning. Symbols matter, Tull agreed. The Knox had forgotten this. We had reduced everything to function and efficiency. As they stood watching the preparations, Park received a notification on his communicator. He read it quickly, then looked up at Tool with surprise. The United Earth Council has approved your request. The Information Exchange Program will include full access to human reproductive education and family structure studies. Tull's reaction was subtle but unmistakable, a slight vibration of his head ridges that Park had learned indicated deep satisfaction. This knowledge will transform the Knox forever. Are you concerned about that? Park asked. Change isn't always easy, especially for a species that's remained unchanged for so long. I was concerned, Tool admitted, until I witnessed the birth recording in your medical bay. In that moment, I understood something profound. The alien commander turned to fully face Park. The universe does not belong to those who maintain. It belongs to those who create. As the celebration began around them, Park watched humans and Knox mingling, sharing food, exchanging ideas. Lieutenant Kim had joined them, deep in conversation with a Knox scientist who was carefully, respectfully scanning her pregnant belly with a handheld device. When I was assigned to first contact, Park said quietly, I never imagined I'd be attending a joint species baby shower. Tull made the rumbling sound that Park now recognized as Knox laughter. And I never imagined that the most dangerous discovery for the Knox would not be a weapon, but an idea that two distinct beings can create something greater than themselves. As night fell over the embassy, the newly installed stellar observation dome revealed the stars above. The same stars that had once seemed to promise only threat and conquest. Now they sparkled with possibility, with futures neither species could have imagined alone. To new understanding, Park said, raising a glass in the human tradition of a toast. Tull mimicked the gesture with careful precision. To new creation,